Today I'm going to show you guys something really cool. This village I'm in has the highest concentration of buildings still standing from the 1700s outside of Boston. It's historic Deerfield, Massachusetts, right along the Connecticut River, right in the center part of the state. A lot of the buildings are still preserved here. It's absolutely gorgeous. The downtown is beautiful. You can walk it for free. You can also buy tickets to see certain events behind the scenes. That's what I'm going to do.
You've come to the right place, but most of all,
the visitor center gives you a great overview of the history here. It's kind of situated in the middle of the park. I think the best way to proceed is to kind of walk the entire park counterclockwise, and then go north to the northern terminus of this main street, then south the other way. The first thing that I notice when I get here is these huge oak and elm trees just promenading over the center street. I feel like I'm in Harvard Yard. I really wanted to go into that silver smithery right there that Paul Revere supposedly worked in, but it's closed, unfortunately. Something you have to keep in mind walking the street. The whole thing looks like a freaking museum, but a lot of these are actually private residence by, I guess, very hoity-toity people. Deerfield was settled in the 1660s, a couple generations after the Pilgrims landed. The native Pocumtuck Indians were initially tolerant of them. They knew of them through the Wampanoag, which are further to the coast. But the Pocumtuck didn't have a concept of land ownership. And when the white settlers gave them all these gifts, all this valuable stuff that they wanted, they didn't understand that that was meant to be in exchange for ownership of the land. Yeah, it's beautiful. So many buildings preserved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is, well, it's not the biggest and best, but it's one of the best because the family that lived here for 200 years didn't really make many huge changes to the house, which is kind of unusual.
How old is this house specifically?
1755.
Wow.
Yeah.
Sheldon House. Believe it or not, a family lived here as recently as 1966. You go inside. It was built in 1751. It feels like it was built in 1551. It's so old in there. I love how they have a fireplace in every room in those days. Also, these houses typically house like several generations of a family, like 10 or 12 people at once. So Deerfield kind of became a sort of trading post with the Indians for the first 10 or 15 years of its existence. But then in the 1670s, England went through a civil war and they stopped sending new supplies to the American colonies for like 5 years, completely cut them off. The Americans had to, well, I should say the settlers in those days, had to learn how to grow their own crops and create their own muskets and create their own everything. Basically, they were left to fend for themselves. And the Native Americans under Metacomet decided to strike while the iron was hot and try to force the colonists back off the land. It was a bloody war, and Deerfield was actually burned to the ground during that war. Believe it or not, though, the settlers actually won that war. Deerfield was resurrected, and it grew again for the next 30 years until a second Indian raid in 1704, paid for by France, which was at war with England at that time, attacked Deerfield, burned the village to the ground, killed everyone, hundreds of people except for 100 people. They took captive as hostages, marched them all the way up to Canada, and then killed or ransomed them off. It was gruesome.
This street that you're on today is one of the most well-documented streets in the country. And the reason for that is because of George Sheldon.
So that house, the Frary House, was actually the epicenter of the arts and crafts revitalization movement of the late 1800s, thanks to some women who survived. After the Civil War, I guess a lot of the men here died, and there were only women left. These big houses, lots of which fell into ruin. Deerfield kind of resuscitated itself from a state of dilapidation by the late 1800s due to all of its arts and crafts. And actually, the tour guide recommended I go down to a museum down the street here, the Memorial Hall, built in 1798, which was originally the site of the first Deerfield Academy. which is a very hoity-toity private school that costs like 70 grand a year. It's right downtown. I call them hoity-toity, but they've actually been very instrumental in preserving historic Deerfield Village. Anyway, let's check out this museum. So Deerfield was the most northern and the most western colonial settlement at the time of that raid of 1704, where the Mohawks just destroyed the town and took 100 hostages. They have in this museum right here the door that was on one of the buildings there that the Mohawks chopped through with their tomahawks and left a hole. It's right here. This is from the raid. This door is the only thing preserved of that building. A lot of the captives of that raid were young women. Sometimes the women were abducted by the Indians to replace their own children that they lost to smallpox. There's an example of one here. And the tour guide at the other place said that a lot of the young women who were taken hostage only when they were like 9, 10, 11 years old and taken up to Canada, they didn't want to come back. They didn't want to come back to this Puritan village. And some of them actually married their captors. Deerfield Academy has since spread beyond that original building there. 1798, that's when it started. George Washington was still alive when Deerfield Academy was first incorporated. But anyway, now they mostly take up the center of the town. This is the historic Deerfield Town Common. Now it's basically a traffic circle encircled by the driveway for the main Deerfield Academy building. That's okay though. I'm gonna go up the street here. I'm gonna check out their little gift shop and museum. It's open for another 20 minutes. I wanna see if I can get a sticker for the van. Check this out, they do actually have stickers. There's some cool arts and crafts in here too. How cool would it be to stay at that Deerfield Inn right there? The whole downstairs is like an old school 17th century tavern. You know, I forbid myself from ever paying for lodging again when I got the van 2 years ago. I think I paid for motels twice since then. I could see myself making an exception for a quaint little thing like that, just to experience it. Anyways, I gotta travel north. I'm going to a campground tonight, another one. This one is called Lake Denison or something, or Deniston. I have no idea, folks, but you guys are gonna come along with me. I gotta stop and resupply the van first and hopefully do a great hike. I think I should get a great sunset over the lake there. The amount of food I got at that market basket in Athol or wherever that was, that would have cost 4 times as much had I bought it in Boston. I really need to start grocery shopping outside the city. I also turned my fridge back on, which I don't like to do because it's just a constant drain on the battery. But it's worth it because the campground I'm at tonight, I'm gonna cook. The weather's looking good. It's called Lake Denison, and for the second night in a row, I managed to score a campsite that's right up against the lake. Spectacular view. I can just put my feet in the water, and this is a Saturday night. It's unheard of to get a spot like this in the summer on a Saturday. I really lucked out. Also, check out next to me. I've never seen a van like this. My neighbors, looks like they have a converted Vanagon or something. One of those things that went through a chop shop in the 70s. It's really cool. I kind of want to go over and talk to them. But in the meantime, I'm gonna walk around this lake here. This is actually a reservoir. So there's a big group of like 30 women there, like drinking heavily. As I walked by, they said, "Hi, we're not nuns." Really, we're not nuns. Lots of trailer campers here. I'm such a convert on vans. I just can't see myself towing something all the time. So it looks like there's a trail that goes to that public beach around the other side. I'm gonna walk that right now. I've got some time to kill, but the light is great right now. There's just enough clouds. So the beach that's on the other side is a beach. It's clearly a lot of people doing things you do at a beach, frolicking, fishing, paddleboarding, more frolicking. This is clearly the main beach of the lake, not the one over by my campsite. The light is much better over here too. I think I'm gonna shoot the sunset on this side. But in the meantime, I'm gonna go back to my campsite. I wanna see more of that van next to me. I also wanna figure out what's going on with all those nuns. How can 30 people pack into 4 campers? So the trail that goes around the lake between the two beaches is called the Dingle Trail. Unfortunately, it's the only trail here. I'm not a fan of campgrounds where there's not much hiking to be done. Still, the Dingle Trail goes through some beautiful wetlands. I might actually shoot through there for the light tonight, or maybe in the morning. Campgrounds like this, though, are, to me, just a place to sleep. Well, probably no surprise that I spent the evening editing on my laptop at that picnic table instead of shooting anywhere. I guess that's the fate of a YouTuber nowadays. I seem to be doing that every night, but, you know, it's nice to have a picnic table and the campfire right there, and the light changing behind me. It's actually kind of fun. It's very relaxing. I'm gonna miss when campgrounds close. I hope you guys enjoyed my tour of historic Deerfield today. It's something that's been on my radar for a while. I've been wanting to do a deep dive in that town. It's very cool how they preserved all those buildings. And yeah, this campground right here, Lake Denison, like I said, very pretty. Not a lot of hiking trails, like no hiking trails. Not sure I'd come back to it. But yeah, that was today's video. Until next time, I'm going to say peace out, everyone. Have a great time.